decline of feudalism, looking back. My name is Kyle. Today we will be looking back at the decline of feudalism and everything that caused it. We will be starting today with the Magna Carta. It all started with the death of King Richard. After he died, his brother John became the king. He demanded that nobles pay more taxes so that he could go to battle. He was threatened revolt against him and to have his life taken away because of this threat he made against the nobles. The nobles and other townspeople forced him to accept a document known as the Magna Carta. During this time, the Pope was not happy with the King John. In the 13th century, bishops decided that they wanted to have a say. King John was excommunicated in 1209. The Magna Carta was of very large importance of history. The Declaration of Independence and Bill of Rights were guided by the Magna Carta. There are two major developments that go along with the Magna Carta. One is the growth of Parliament, and second is growth of common law. The growth of Parliament is a group of knights, church members, and nobles known as the English Parliament. They balance out the power. Now we will be moving on to the Crusades. These were wars on the Muslims because Christians wanted to regain the Holy Lands. 10,000 and more Europeans took part in these wars. The Seljuk Turks threatened to attack against Constantinople. The Pope held a meeting with the church officials and asked them to join the war to win back the Holy Land. There were 9 different crusades over the course of 195 years. During this time, the weapon of choice was a crossbow. It was a weapon of choice because it was able to penetrate armor. Now we'll be taking a short commercial break and we'll be right back. Does your armor ever get dirty? Are you constantly polishing it with chemicals that don't work? Well, now there's Shiny Shield for all your shield shining needs. Call 1-800-SHINE-MY-SHIELD, only $19.95 for shipping and handling. And we're back. We will be continuing this program with the revival of growth and trade in towns. Once Rome fell, there was basically no more trade. Manors grew to be self-sufficient, and the population of towns of major trade fell because of the manors. But since the Crusades, the trade was brought back. The soldiers from the Crusades, or more well known as the Crusaders, brought back goods from Asia. The demand of these goods became greater. As these trades grew, merchants needed to find places to trade these goods. Because of this, trade towns grew together. The big point here is that because the towns grew, people no longer relied on the manorial system, which meant feudalism slowly faded away until there was no more. Many people moved into towns. These towns became very wealthy because people that lived there specialized in making specific goods. Towns once again became center of trade and manufacturer of goods. The trade and productions of goods there was watched over by guilds. These guilds were people in the same business as they were. The Crusaders were some of the first to come up with the trade in Europe. Because of their travels, they were able to get exotic goods to trade. They also brought knowledge that they learned from the Muslims. This knowledge gave the Europeans a more rich culture. This is a form of cultural diffusion. Soon, the Italians became the main place to trade once again. Trading today isn't what it used to be back then. Today is like it was back then in the way that we are in a bad economy right now. They were in a bad time of trading. But they grew stronger after the trading fell, and because of it, it became better for them. Hopefully the economy rises back up like the trading did for them. This is a very important part of this section because it shows how problems still happen today. Now we will move on to the Black Death. This is a very important part of the decline. Now the whole plague began from fleas that fed on rat blood. Once the rats died, the fleas would jump to any living thing that they could to survive. People would not change clothes for months, so in this case, they would get the plague easier. The plague spread throughout China, India, and Europe. It was spread through major trade routes throughout Europe. Symptoms include black and blue marks, egg-sized bumps, fever, fierce cough, sneezing, and vomiting. It was unknown how the disease got to Europe. About half of China's population was killed. About 24 million people were killed in Europe. That is a huge amount. About 1/3 of the population. The amount of deaths was the main contributing factor to the decline of feudalism. The economic and social structure fell. The trade became slow once again. Because so many nobles died, the common people became more powerful than ever before. The workers left demanded more money for services and had very high standards. At the beginning, only wealthy could afford the luxury goods. As time went on, the people began selling more everyday items, such as food and clothing. Merchants and guilds soon became members of the middle class. This class favored the king because he had power to protect the trades. Peasants and serfs moved to towns. They attempted to find jobs when they eventually moved. But since there were many people in town, death was soon to come. Many peasant revolts also broke out. The famous one was the English Peasant War. Now that was a very important topic because it had most contributed to the decline of feudalism. The last part of the decline is the 100 Years' War. This war was fought from 1337 to 1453. The war was fought between France and England. This war lasted 116 years. They were fighting over the land in France. It all started with English kings thinking that the land in France was theirs. As a result, they went to war. England won many of the first battles. It was a result of their new longbow, lighter armor, and well-trained foot soldiers. The new longbow was as it sounds. It was longer, more accurate, and faster. The French had not gotten this modern technology yet, but they had played England a different way. They started to pay troops with tax money. They also became filled with more pride. They became inspired by a peasant named Joan of Arc. In 1492, she led some of the French soldiers to a victory in the Battle of Orleans. But she was accused of being a witch and she was burned to death. She inspired the French and made them look at everything different. The French finally got English out of France. This added to the decline of feudalism because it helped shift power from the lords to the monarchs and even more common people. Monarchs collected taxes during the war. Military technology had also changed. Knights and castles were not as much used anymore. The longbow was very effective from the start. Nationalism gave the lords less power. English and French peasants became more loyal to the king. The peasants were soon forced to fight in the army and to pay higher taxes more frequently. Soldiers that were still alive became workers in abandoned towns. So coming out of feudalism, the more common people had more power, rights, and influence. That is all I have in this program today. I'm Kyle Stark. Thanks for watching.